chaos doesn't ease in, it kicks the door down in the middle of a soul-sucking traffic jam. One poor driver, stuck in a sea of honking and red brake lights, slams his steering wheel in frustration. What the hell is going on up there? He grumbles, fully prepared to launch into a symphony of complaints. That's when something catches his eye in the side mirror. Strutting up the gridlocked road is our MC, moving like he owns the place. Not in a rush, not flustered, just smooth, like a boss who forgot to clock in. And the dude? Oh, he's a sight. There's the sword, for starters, casually slung over his back like it's a gym bag. But the piece de resistance? The flashy jacket with a massive golden dragon sprawled across the back, glinting under the setting sun. He's not walking, he's parading. Curiosity trumps frustration, and the driver rolls down his window, ready to bark something clever. But his jaw drops so fast he nearly swallows his gum. This isn't some cosplayer lost on his way to Comic-Con. No, this guy's vibe is pure danger, and every step screams, "Don't mess with me unless you're ready to find out why." Meanwhile, our MC, let's just call him Dragon Jacket for now, isn't even acknowledging the sea of gawking civilians. Nope, he's too busy with whatever mission he's on. Leaping onto the hood of a car without breaking stride, he hops across vehicles like it's an obstacle course built just for him. The driver stares, wide-eyed, barely managing a thought beyond. What is happening? Then, things get worse. The atmosphere shifts, hard. Up ahead, a red glow blooms across the road, lighting up the stalled traffic like the world's creepiest rave. The air grows heavy, charged with energy that raises goosebumps on the skin. Then it hits the crack. Space itself begins to tear open, and from the widening rift, red lightning crackles out like a warning shot. Dragon Jacket halts, his sharp gaze locking onto the spreading gate. He knows what's coming. "Everyone, move!" he shouts, his voice cutting through the rising panic like a blade. The crowd doesn't need to be told twice. Car doors fly open, people scramble over one another, and chaos explodes as they try to get as far from the gate as possible. And then the roar. The sound rips through the air, deep and guttural, sending shockwaves of fear through the fleeing masses. The gate yawns open fully, and from its glowing maw, monsters spill out snarling, black-furred beasts the size of SUVs, their glowing red eyes locked on the nearest prey. Dragon Jacket, however, doesn't flinch. He draws his sword, and blue mana ignites along its edge, crackling with raw power. As the first monstrous hound lunges, he steps forward, calm as a guy about to butter toast, and swings. The blade carves clean through the beast, splitting it in half before it even has time to regret its life choices. Another rushes in, and with a pivot and a downward slash, it too is reduced to two pieces. It's effortless. While he's putting on a one-man monster massacre, backup finally arrives. A squad of raiders, decked out in tactical gear and bristling with weapons, storms the scene. At their head is a blonde guy with sharp eyes, barking orders to his crew. But as they reach the front lines, the sight before them makes them freeze. "Wait!" the blonde murmurs, scanning the battlefield. The gate is wide open, monsters are pouring out, but there are no casualties, no shredded bodies, no bloodbath, just one man, standing amidst the carnage, cutting through the beasts like they're made of paper. Then the real nightmare steps out of the gate. Quadra Drake, the hulking, four-headed monstrosity, stomps onto the road, its massive claws leaving cracks in the asphalt. Flames smolder in its mouths, heat waves rippling the air as it snarls at its prey. Its aura alone presses down on everyone like a crushing weight, rooting the civilians, those who haven't managed to escape to the spot. The blonde raider pales. "That's from system number 43, he says, voice barely above a whisper. "A Quadra Drake, an advanced-level monster." Translation: this thing is bad news. For unprepared raiders, even Goldmark veterans, it's a death sentence. But Dragon Jacket? He steps forward without hesitation. The Quadra Drake roars, its head snaking in different directions as it scans for threats. Our MC tightens his grip on his sword, mana flaring brighter. Then, with a leap that defies gravity, he launches himself straight at the beast. The Drake swipes at him, but it's too slow. With a spinning slash, he carves through one of its heads. The monster shrieks, thrashing wildly, but Dragon Jacket doesn't stop. His strikes are precise, cutting through thick scales like they're tissue paper. Finally, with a deafening blast of mana, he delivers the finishing blow, cleaving the beast in two. The Quadra Drake crashes to the ground, its enormous body shaking the earth. Fire and debris scatter across the road, flipping cars and wrecking everything in the vicinity. The raiders? They just stand there, staring like spectators at a circus. The blonde leader's eyes are glued to the man standing amidst the wreckage, his jacket fluttering dramatically in the fiery wind. The golden dragon on his back glints in the light of the dying flames. Dragon Jacket wipes the drake's blood off his face with a flick of his hand, looking entirely too cool for someone who just fought a Godzilla wannabe. He glances over at the speechless raiders and flashes a cocky grin. "Lee Semin," he says, his voice oozing confidence. "One hell of a raider." And with that, the legend begins. Let's rewind. Before Lee Semin was cleaving monsters in half and rocking a golden dragon jacket, he was a mess. Not just any mess, the mess. Picture an out-of-shape, unmotivated gamer glued to his laptop and powered entirely by instant ramen. That's the Lee Semin we're talking about. If you squint, you might catch a glimmer of potential under the layers of self-pity. But even then, it's a stretch. Enter the samurai. Not just any samurai, this guy looked like he walked straight out of legend. Dark mana swirling around him like a living storm cloud. His every step radiated an ancient, warrior energy that practically screamed, "Get your life together." He wasn't here to mess around either. Standing before Lee, he growled, "Stand up. You are no coward." Lee froze, blinking up at the samurai like he was the final boss of a game he wasn't ready to play. But something about the warrior's tone hit him in the gut. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a statement of fact, like the samurai already knew Lee better than Lee knew himself. For the first time in forever, something sparked inside him, a flicker of confidence. Small but undeniable. The words weren't fancy or poetic, but they were exactly what he needed. Maybe, just maybe, this was the moment Lee's life finally started turning around. Fast forward a bit, and here's the rundown. After monsters began ripping through the world, humanity split into two camps: raiders and non-raiders. The raiders are the ones with enough guts or stupidity to fight back. To keep things organized, the Raider Management Bureau (RMB) was formed. Think of it as HQ for anyone crazy enough to take on interdimensional death beasts. Which brings us to Lee. He's sitting in the RMB waiting room, hunched over like he's waiting for detention. Sweat drips down his forehead as he fidgets nervously. It's time for his routine checkup, and spoiler, it's not going to end with a gold star or a lollipop. Lee isn't just any wannabe raider. He's a prospective raider, meaning he's awakened some aura but hasn't passed the qualifications yet. Today's appointment is all about the awakening judgment, which is a fancy way of saying, let's see if you're worth keeping around. Every prospective raider gets tested to see if their aura levels meet the minimum threshold. If not, well, good luck surviving military service, buddy. When Lee finally gets called into the testing room, it's everything you'd expect. Sterile, clinical, and so quiet you could hear your own hopes shattering. The centerpiece is the testing chair, a big, intimidating hunk of machinery that practically screams, "Welcome to your doom." Standing beside it is the examiner, a woman in a white lab coat who's already looking at Lee like she knows how this is going to go. She doesn't even bother with small talk. "All right, you know the drill. Sit down. Let's get this over with." Lee sighs, slumping into the chair like a guy walking to his own execution. The machine whirs to life, scanning him for aura levels. A few tense seconds later, the results blink onto the screen. 103. Same as always. The woman barely glances at the number before letting out an exasperated sigh. "Still no improvement, huh? You've been stuck at 103 since the day you awakened." For context, aura starts at 100. Anything below 150 is, frankly, pathetic. No amount of training has helped Lee move the needle, and it's starting to feel like the universe has it out for him. The examiner folds her arms, piling on the bad news. "Your aura's too weak for raider qualification. If nothing changes by your next checkup, you'll be shipped off to the military. They've already delayed your service once. No more extensions." Lee barely manages a nod, his face burning with shame. She keeps talking, offering counseling sessions like that's going to fix his problems. But Lee just mutters, "I'm here for the evaluation." Dodging her offer like it's a pop quiz he didn't study for. She shrugs. "Your call," she says, but her tone makes it clear she doesn't expect to see him in a raider uniform anytime soon. Lee stumbles out of the RMB, clutching his evaluation report like it's his death sentence. 103. The number taunts him, a constant reminder that no matter how hard he tries, he's still a failure. He heads home as the evening light fades, shoulders slumped under the weight of disappointment. His apartment is a disaster. Clothes, food wrappers, and gaming gear litter every surface. But he doesn't care. He kicks some junk aside and powers up his laptop, eager for a distraction. The screen lights up, and a notification pings from the Transcendent network, an online hub for raiders and wannabes. Despite doubting its legitimacy, Lee clicks the link out of sheer boredom. His profile loads up. Unemployed bum Lee. The username stings a little, but it's not wrong. Shrugging it off, he dives into the forums. Most of the posts are chaotic flame wars between users with over-the-top names like Shadowless Slayer Demugwang and Dragon Lord Amunkazel. The comments are a cesspool of trolling, roasting, and general immaturity. For the first time all day, Lee cracks a smile. These people might be raiders, but their attitudes scream high school cafeteria drama. Amused, he joins the fray, tossing out a few sarcastic comments to stir the pot. Then, something catches his eye: breaking news post about on Sungjun, a raider who just hit platinum rank. The headline? Solo mission. On Sungjun seals a Kazaya on Mount Buchan. The name hits Lee like a punch to the gut. This guy wasn't just any raider, he used to be on Lee's level. They trained together, competed together. But now, On Sungjun is a rising star, while Lee's stuck at the starting line. Frustration flares. Lee remembers when they were equals, back when he still believed he could be something great. Now, On Sungjun's success feels like a spotlight on Lee's failures. In a fit of anger, Lee rips down the sticky notes plastered to his wall, reminders of his training schedule and failed goals. He mutters to himself, trying to shake off the bitterness, but the weight of his own shortcomings is suffocating. Just as he's about to lose himself in self-pity, another notification pops up. This time, it's a message from wandering beggar Kim Bonghak, who wastes no time insulting Lee for his lack of achievements. Lee, not one to back down, fires back with a snarky roast. The comment section erupts into chaos as more users join in, including Grand Wizard Ilana, who casually mentions spending points to check out unemployed bum Lee. Then it happens. A pink portal materializes behind him, glowing like neon cotton candy. Before Lee can process what's happening, a stunning woman steps through. Grand Wizard Ilana herself, looking like a literal goddess. She scans the room, her gaze landing on Lee. "Are you really unemployed bum Lee from the network?" she asks, her voice dripping with curiosity. Lee freezes, staring at her like she's a glitch in his reality. "Well," she says, her tone playful but sharp, "I wanted to see who you really are. So, here I am." And just like that, Lee's very average life takes a hard left turn into the absurd. The whole vibe in the room flips the moment the Transcendent lady steps in, practically glowing in pinks and indigos like she owns the place. And then bam, she's on Lee in a flash. Before he can even think about defending himself, a massive tree-like structure bursts out of nowhere, wrapping around him like some vengeful snake squeezing the life out of its prey. Lee lets out a strangled scream as the pressure closes in on him. She's barely trying, but she's got him locked down so tight he might as well be a ragdoll. The look on her face says it all. This is the guy who cracked the Transcendent network? She's clearly unimpressed. As the grip around him tightens, she's probably cursing her bad luck, wondering how someone as weak and pathetic as Lee could have stumbled his way into something that should have been impossible. Meanwhile, Lee's flailing helplessly, his body screaming under the crushing force, his brain scrambling for a way to get out of this nightmare. She starts tossing him around like he's weightless, her voice sharp and cutting as she grills him. "Who are you? What are you doing here? How did you get access to the network?" For her, this is a joke, like poking at a bug to see if it moves. And Lee? He's the bug. To be fair, cracking the Transcendent network is no small feat. Even seasoned raiders wouldn't dream of it. But Lee? He's shaking like a leaf in a hurricane, begging for her to put him down so he can explain himself. And surprisingly, she listens. She releases her grip, and Lee plummets to the ground, landing face first with a satisfying thud. Groaning, he picks himself up, rubbing his sore nose. Instead of cowering, though, he tries to flip the script, classic Lee, by demanding, "Who the hell are you anyway?" She arches an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed but maybe a little amused by his guts. Without skipping a beat, she cuts to the chase. Raiders. Was he lying about being one? Lee panics, stammering out a half-baked explanation. No, he's not a raider yet, but he's on his way to becoming one. Or, trying to. She doesn't look convinced. Her patience wears thinner with every stumbling word. She asks him again, this time sharper, like she's daring him to try lying. Desperate, Lee starts rambling about Aura, the energy that raiders use to hunt and fight monsters, and how he's technically awakened. This catches her attention, though her expression says she's still waiting for him to prove he's not a total waste of space. She gestures for him to show her this power of his. Lee lights up, thinking this might be his chance to redeem himself. He focuses hard, summoning all the mana he's got. But when it finally appears, the result is less than stellar. His so-called blue aura is more of a pathetic flicker, like a half-dead firefly in a jar. It sputters out almost immediately, leaving the room awkwardly silent. Ilana stares at him, her expression a mix of disbelief and disgust. She raises a hand to her face, pinching the bridge of her nose like she's physically in pain from how bad this is. "This is what you call mana?" she mutters, her voice dripping with frustration. Before Lee can stammer out an apology, her own mana flares to life. The entire room is bathed in a fierce pink glow as her power surges. It's massive, overwhelming, the kind of force that could level a city without breaking a sweat. The walls shake, the ground trembles, and Lee falls to his knees, clutching his head as the pressure crashes down on him. The neighbors, probably thinking it's an earthquake, start banging on Lee's door, shouting to check if everything's okay. Lee waves them off with a weak, "It's fine," but his voice cracks, not convincing anyone. He shoots a panicked glance at Ilana, silently begging her to chill before someone calls the cops or worse, before she kills him outright. Ilana is livid. She's just wasted her precious points she earned through endless battles and hard work on this weak, trembling guy who can't even summon a proper aura. She demands to know how someone like him could have possibly accessed the Transcendent network. Lee, still cowering on the floor, mutters that he doesn't know. He blames it on his laptop. "I just opened it and there it was," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. This catches her off guard. "Laptop?" she repeats, tilting her head like he just spoke a foreign language. She eyes the device sitting on his desk, calling it a communication tool from his world, like it's some ancient artifact. It's becoming clear to Lee that she's not from around here, not from this reality at all. She gives him a chance to explain further, but Lee has nothing. He stammers some weak excuse about being a regular guy with a boring life, trying to dodge her questions. Her eyes flick to the sticky notes plastered all over his wall, but they don't give her any answers either. Frustrated, she leans back in his chair, adjusting herself like she's settling in for a long interrogation. She finally asks the one question that hits Lee the hardest. "What are you doing with your life?" Lee flinches like she just slapped him. He mumbles something about struggling, about how life hasn't exactly been kind to him. He tells her about being orphaned, taken in by uncaring relatives, bullied in school for his weak aura, and eventually dropping out. Now, he's just a guy stuck in limbo, playing games and pretending he still has a shot at being a raider. Ilana listens but doesn't seem impressed. After a moment, she leans forward, resting her chin on her hand. "So you've just given up?" she says, her tone almost mocking. "That's pretty pathetic." Her words cut deep. Lee stares at the floor, wishing he could sink into it and disappear. But then, unexpectedly, she softens. "You've tried, haven't you?" she asks, her voice quieter now. Despite the jab, there's something oddly comforting about her tone. Lee hesitates, then nods. He tells her more, about how hard he's worked despite his failures, how he's tried to push past his limits even though his aura has never improved. It's the most honest he's been with anyone in a long time. Ilana listens, her expression unreadable. Finally, she stands, brushing herself off. "Well, this has been enlightening," she says dryly. She opens a glowing portal, clearly ready to leave, but before stepping through, she turns back. "Don't post anything stupid on the bulletin again. If you do, I'll come back and you won't like how that ends." Lee nods furiously, grateful to see her go. But just as she's about to disappear, she pauses. "One last thing," she says. "The world is unfair, but that doesn't mean you get to sit here and wallow in self-pity." She looks him in the eye, her gaze sharp but not unkind. "You're human. Figure out how to live like one." The portal closes behind her, leaving Lee alone in his destroyed apartment. For a moment, Lee's struck by how human Present seems, despite his godlike status. In a strange way, Lee feels like they're two sides of the same coin, one scarred by battles, the other by a lifetime of failures. Lee puts on his dating coach hat, determined to give Present his best shot. "Okay, first move," he says, pacing his room like he's giving a TED Talk. "Hit her with something emotional, something that'll stay in her head. Say this, Where have your wings gone? Persian's response is immediate. Wings? What wings? Lee smirks, already ahead of the game. Exactly. When she asks what you mean, tell her she's an angel who's lost her wings. It's cheesy. It's bold. It's genius. Persian's blown away. You're a legend. He types, clearly impressed by Lee's ability to craft such a poetic line. Lee basks in the praise, feeling like he's finally good at something. Step 2, Lee ups the ante. If she smiles, drop this line next. Your smile is the reason my heart's gonna explode. Persian's practically typing in all caps now, thanking Lee for his wisdom. Lee's grinning like a maniac, pacing his room as he feeds the sword demon line after line. It's surreal he's coaching one of the most powerful men in the world on how to flirt, and Persen is eating it up. Thanks for watching, guys. Comment Flamingo and subscribe for the next part.